like to welcome you to Boy Meets Wellness, a podcast that discusses the complexities, celebrations, and challenges of building a wellness ritual as a BOI, a person who is born obviously incredible. You are now listening to Boy Meets Wellness with poet, motivational speaker, and wellness lover, Evolve Benton.
BOI, born obviously incredible, especially when you wear it pretty.
All right, Walter. Well, thank you so much for being here for Boy Meets Wellness, coming on the show, being willing to have this conversation with us and being willing to tap in. I got my phone here because I got my interview questions, so I'll be looking there for you. But my first question for you is, what brings you joy and what are your pronouns?
All right, pronouns are he, him. What brings me joy is something I'm still discovering, and it's not because I don't have any joy. It's just because I think that I've never really thought about it. And I know I can answer this way because recently I was asked what some of my hobbies are. And I was like, I don't know, podcasting, creating content, I guess. But that does bring me joy. But I think I want to be more intentional about finding things outside of my kind of day-to-day life or passions even that bring me joy, because I don't want to just be focused on just this one thing. So I do enjoy just spending time watching TV. I enjoy getting smoothies in particular. I love smoothies. I hope that I'm going to enjoy woodworking, because that's a hobby that I want to pick up, not for any purpose other than to just do it. And I recently brought a keyboard out of the garage that was gifted to me when I was a kid from my dad. And I'm going to start playing it again. So I'd love to be able to really just challenge Alicia Keys and John Legend at the same time in a new version of Versus. So
I love it. I love it. That is really cool. Yeah, we should maybe do some accountability sessions with each other, because I actually just got a keyboard. And one of the things I want to learn is all trap music, of course, right? That's I want to be the trap pianist. But also I would love to learn how to play mostly Christmas songs, but soulful Black Christmas songs for the holidays. So we should share notes, hold each other accountable. And this time next year, we might be in a jam session together, right?
Hey, yes, let's do it. And I need the accountability. So yes.
So Walter, where are you from in the world? Where did you grow up and where are you currently located?
I grew up right outside of Charleston, South Carolina. One of those beautiful places in the world, I like to say. I'm currently in Atlanta, Georgia. Been here for about 3 years.
Nice. How do you like ATL? What's one of your favorite things about the city?
I love everything about it. There's always things you don't always enjoy as much, but for the most part, I just love it here. I love the food here. There's food from all sorts of cultures. There's a place called Buford Highway where you can do a 360 turn and you see nothing but Asian restaurants, and not just general Asian. There's Korean spot, there's Vietnamese spot.
I got boba out there.
We got boba. We got everything.
I didn't know they had boba out there. Yeah. You kind of might sell me on it a little bit. Black people and boba. I don't know. I didn't know I could do both.
Yes. Have you ever had Ethiopian food?
Yes, I have. That's my jam. They got
it all. I love the food here. It's not just outside cultures, a general food top 10. I think it's really cool meeting all the people, because everyone you meet in a lot of places, everyone meet is they got something they're working on, something creative, but everybody has different backgrounds here. There's all sorts of different ways to be. So it's really cool to see other people who are working on their passion, and you might end up running into Lil Duval and looking stupid when you meet him, because you're like, oh, is that actually Lil Duval right here? Oh, yeah, it is. Okay, cool. And yeah, so it's a cool city.
Yeah, I've heard that they call it the Hollywood of the South, right? And I grew up in LA, so I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos about Atlanta, because we're looking to buy property maybe in the South very soon. And that's one of the places we've been looking at. And so many people say it reminds them of the Hollywood of the South, similar to LA. And I feel like LA is that type of place where you could be eating breakfast and the next thing you know, you see Denzel Washington walk in. Like, you just really never know. So it's such an interesting experience. But I love that you mentioned the food, right? Because I feel like that's really what brings you joy, Walter. Like, I know you didn't bring it up during the beginning, but I seen a smile. I seen you lighten up. You was in there. I felt like we was about to go get Ethiopian food right after this. So we might have to do that when I come through the ATL.
That's a must. That's a must. We definitely got to do that.
Dope. Okay, so South Carolina, now you're in Atlanta, right? And have you been there for most of the pandemic? Probably, yeah, right?
Yeah, all the pandemic. In fact, I moved here, started to get a feel for the city, and the pandemic happened. So now I feel like a tourist all over again.
Oh, wow. So you moved as soon as, wow, that's very interesting. So tell us, what has been your wellness practice, right? Because we are Boy Meets Wellness, right? And we understand that entrepreneurship, holistic wellness, and our wealth and our lives are all intersected, right? You can't have one and not have the other. What have you been doing to keep yourself involved, keep yourself feeling good, unisolated during this time?
That's a really good question because it wasn't until this past year that I realized how much work life and your personal life really blends together. And so right now I'm very intentional about breaks and not putting as much pressure on due dates. Those two things are important to me because I feel like I have very strong workaholic tendencies, and it's great for productivity, right? But not that great for just your, or at least for my mental well-being, and not associating happiness and success with heavy amounts of productivity. So for me, it's intentionally planning out a day. I really want to work up to a week where I do not focus on anything related to work or creative output that could help me get ahead, because I really want to be better at just enjoying the moment, enjoying the time I have with people around me. And I guess enjoying food too, because you're right. Your food does bring me joy. And due dates, I think, because for most of my life, I put a lot of pressure on myself to do a lot of things in a short amount of time. And I realized that I do that because I think that's what other people expect of me, but it's not at all. In fact, the expectations other people have to me, people I create for, with all that stuff, is just to, just to be me. And that's kind of freeing. That's a new revelation as well. So those are kind of my ways of practicing wellness. And I'm on a self-care journey now, so I'm learning all about everything. I got a pedicure for the first time a few months ago. That felt amazing. So
Yeah, man, you were missing out, man. I don't know what you was thinking. So I have a lot of cousins, right? I'm the only child, but tons of cousins. I feel like they're my siblings. And being more of a masculine identified Black queer person, they assume a lot of things of me are straight male. Like, I'm just a man, right? And I'm like, I'm not a man, I'm queer. Like, this is totally different. It's hard for them to understand. So wellness for you has been really about pace. That's what I'm hearing, right? Like, making sure. And I love that you brought in this thing around radical rest, right? And I think it's so powerful to hear that from you, especially as a Black man. There's so many Black men in my life who really associate love with productivity, right? Love with work. Like, the way that I show up and I love you is I'm going to put together your desk for you, right? Like, that's something I feel like my dad would say, but really can't necessarily be present, which is a lot about that pace. So you're doing not only Walter healing, but I feel like you're doing some generational healing by, calling that into your life.
probably, it's interesting because I feel like a lot of things that kind of passed down were things that people had to do. You had to be productive to provide and survive, especially in a world that doesn't really want you to be equal, even though they say, yeah, everyone's equal. So it's like, yeah, I think you're right. I never thought about it that way, but I do know that I want to be intentional about not surviving, but thriving for real.
Yeah, dope. So, Walter, one of the main reasons I wanted to interview you is because you have an amazing show and a podcast as well. And what I really, really appreciate about it is that it's pushing us to think about a topic that I don't think we think about a lot, which is Black hair, right? And professionalism. So can you tell me a little bit about what the name of your podcast is and how long you've been doing it and why you chose that as particularly a content piece that you wanted to create.
Yeah, so my show is called Boss Locks, and it originally started with the goal to prove that natural hair and professionalism do coexist. And I started it, to be honest, it wasn't a very intentional thing. I started it because when I was getting ready to graduate from college, a lot of the praise and admiration I've been receiving for my hair started to turn to, okay, all right, so now it's time to graduate. You have everything you need, but all right, so you're gonna have to cut your locks if you want to get a good job, become that CEO that you always talk about being and all that. And I was just like, yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I do get it, but that's not going to happen for me. So I knew that I didn't want to cut my locks, so I didn't know how to have it both, right? Like how to navigate professional environments and also continue to be my full authentic self. I was already nervous about just getting a job in general and everything. Like I was like one of many Googling top 10 interview tips, but I couldn't find anything about top 10 interview tips for people with locks. Like I literally searched that and found nothing. So I just started asking the people I know for advice. And I really only knew like 3 people with locks by professional environments. And they all had different experiences. Like one never showed her hair, went by a different name. Another owned his own business. So he had the luxury of not having to deal with anything. In fact, he was like, if you own your own business, no one can tell you what to do. And the other person I spoke to, she worked at an organization. She was her full authentic self and was doing great. And all these different stories really helped me to realize that one, it can actually work. These are people who are doing it. And there were other people who felt kind of what I was going through. So it really was a reluctant journey, but a lot of people really encouraged me to start recording this and turn it into something. So it took me 3 years to actually launch it because this was also a journey of growth for me, but finally published it 2020 during the pandemic. And this journey has taken on from really wanting to prove to the world that it can coexist to really showcasing and highlighting Black leaders with natural hair who are advancing in their career, but also leading the world to new growth, whether that's their culture, helping other people grow, or just, changing the world in different ways.
Nice. And your hair is beautiful. So thank you so much for continuing it going and not cutting it off. I remember getting out of college and feeling the same way, that I was going to have to change myself. So this resonates so well with me. Have you seen anything in your professional environment, like as you work in the workplace, where people talk about your hair or say anything about your hair, or maybe you didn't get a job because of your hair? Have you heard any of those type of stories or had those experiences yourself?
Yes, to the stories. I've heard everything, and it's insane. In my experiences, I've found it difficult to tell whether or not someone doesn't want me because of my locks, if someone doesn't want me because I'm Black, for all these different reasons. And people are really good at not sharing their true thoughts sometimes, but you always have this hunch about it. But I will say that I've definitely gotten all the questions about locks. I could tell when people are genuinely curious, and I'm always cool with that because new things are interesting, or just like generally like, I don't know what's going on, I don't need that around me. And people they're open to sharing any questions they have and any comments and advice they have for it. And like it's really interesting when you just let people speak without interrupting, just all the things they'll say. So I feel like I've been fortunate because I haven't had the same experience as some of the people who've come on my show, where they've outright been like told, yeah, we could hire you, but you have to cut your locks. I got to hear that story on my podcast. Or even people who have experienced hair discrimination, and luckily the Crown Act what existed in California, so they were able to use it to start combating it. And at the time it was still going on. So I actually have to check in with them to see how it's going now. But yeah, all sorts of stories and things unbelievable and imaginable, and just so many lessons as well. I think the most surprising thing actually was just how many people have not experienced hair discrimination in their personal work environment. They do know about it and they know it's real, but they've just been able to navigate professional environments without having to have things taken away from them because of their
Mm.
choices.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think, we're coming to a point where it's a little bit more acceptable, right, in certain places. But I still get that feeling too when I walk into certain spaces, especially depending on how my locks are styled, right? If they're styled in a more like this way, where it's more like, together, I guess people give me a different vibe than if I just got them all out and they're a little wild and they're a little everywhere. I know if I throw on a headband, it gives a different look compared to if it's just like all shoved in my face. So it's interesting how we navigate it in professional settings where we think we're making it more professional. I don't know if it's actually really working, to be honest with you, but I think it's just the way that makes me feel like, oh, this looks a little bit more formal. So true story, and I wanted to share this with you. This is my second pair of locks. So I had a first pair and I cut them off because I was in a really toxic relationship. And as you know, your head holds so much. And my ex-partner used to do my hair. So I cut them off. I was baldy scaldy for a while. So I'm proof that if you cut your hair, it grows back. For everybody who's listening and watching this, if you cut your hair, it does grow back. Because I have so many homies who have long hair locks and they're like, if I cut them, man, it grows back. It's all good, it's long and strong. Cut them off, and I had a fade, right? First fade in my life, never experienced this. If anyone does cut their hair, make sure you sit under the shower. That feeling of like it on your baldy scaldy is amazing. So in the elevator, in my old job, I get in and I see the CEO. She comes and pats me on the head, pulls my waves back and says, "Oh, you cut your hair, sonny boy." Right? I just cleansed my temple, ma'am. Right. So this was the most discriminatory moment I've ever had when it comes to my hair. Right. And it's just so interesting to me, right? Because that's another natural style, but how folks think it's appropriate to touch or ask these very interesting questions about Black hair. So that's one story. The other story for me is definitely people trying to touch my locks. And this was my first set, and they were really, really long. I had let them grow like almost down to the bottom of my back, but random people running up to me and touching my hair. So it's just for anyone who's listening to this, if you're not Black, and if you are Black, don't be touching Black people hair. Ask for consent. And our heads are so precious. Like our heads hold our connection to spirit. Our heads are like our brains. This is like our livelihood. So I just thought I'd preach that real quick, Walter, because people be out here trying it. I don't know if you've had that experience, but people really be out here trying it.
Yeah, you know what's funny? I feel like I've had so many experiences that sometimes it's like hard to remember. It's just, in fact, I remember, sometimes I'm a little embarrassed just thinking back to some of these memories because I just let people do it. And it's partly because I just didn't really know how to handle that. And also part of me is like, oh, maybe it's okay. But that's what happens when you're like in wide environments for most of your life. But yeah, I've had people like touch my hair even before locks, just touch and be like, oh yeah, it's like carpet. And I was like, oh, what a like weird thing to say. But I think the last time someone tried to touch my locks and I wasn't feeling it, I just told them to like go wash their hands first and then share. Then they felt just as awkward as I did, and it kind of made the whole situation better for me at least. But yeah, no, I think for everyone watching, Black, white, or whatever culture you're from, it's not okay to just go and put your hands on somebody. That's harassment. And I think that we don't really associate those two enough, especially in the workplace, school environments, all the above. It's not okay just to put your hands on somebody without their consent, like you said before.
Peace, family. I want to give you a gift. The guided meditation for wealth is an opportunity for you to start building wealth and growing your income and having a better relationship with money. When I put this meditation together, I was struggling. I was really sitting in some scarcity. And to be honest with you, that still happens to me to this day. This meditation gives you an opportunity to practice and break through that every day. It also gives you an opportunity to move past some of the negative thoughts that you might have around abundance and money. So I'm going to leave the link to this in the show notes or in the description if you're watching this on YouTube, so that you can get into the guided meditation for wealth for free. I want you to listen to this at least twice a day and give yourself an opportunity to build a better relationship with money.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so podcasting, right? You are the audio man. Every time, I got my mic out because I seen Walter and he had his setup and it was looking all good. I was like, okay, I gotta make sure I have a good setup. Why podcasting, and do you have any tips for folks who are maybe wanting to start a podcast?
Yeah, podcasting. At first, actually, my whole plan was to be fully video, YouTube channel, all of that. But then I found myself in a place where I didn't have that many resources available to me, but I had enough to record audio, especially with these remote interviews. That was before like all these other tools that exist. And I was like, okay, you know what? The audio can work. It'll sound great. We're good with that. So I think one cool thing about podcasting is that it's something that's available to everyone. Even if you don't have a mic, like your phone, you could literally record a voice note, and that itself could be, or not voice note, but like record audio sound on the voice recorder, and that itself could be a podcast. And I know a lot of people who have grown their podcast just with their phone and free tools. So it's something that's accessible to everyone. And it's not even that difficult, but we make it difficult. So I think that's my first tip to people just starting out. It's like, yo, just do it. Do what you can, whatever tool you have available, just do it. Like, it doesn't matter if your first 10 episodes aren't like award-winning sound quality. My very first episode I published sounds terrible, to be honest, for a couple of reasons. The audio quality wasn't great, and I was incredibly nervous, had no confidence whatsoever. But the content itself, the message was so powerful, so I had to put it out. And it's one of my most listened to episodes. So I think that we watch a lot of other people who are in podcasting, the celebrity podcasters, they just start out, and it's amazing, but they already have all the resources they need to do amazing things. If you're just at home, just getting started, just try recording and try it, put it out to see how you feel. Just turn it into like a hobby or a game or just something to do, an activity. Don't put too much stress on it when you first start out. You can wait till episode 70 till you're really like, okay, now we're doing this for real.
Yeah, I love that tip of keeping it simple, y'all. Like, I mean, I literally started with Apple headphones and my phone and figured it out and have gotten better. And as you build more wealth in your life, or as you have more access, you can buy more equipment. But I think it's important that we leave the messages, and the messages and the stories that you're telling, Walter, are so important because, like you said, you didn't see that representation when you got out of school, right? And now folks who are out of school, who are going into the workplace, who are going into entrepreneurship, they have this to listen to, right? To empower them to not cut their hair, or to empower them on how to navigate it and make that decision if they need to, right? Because for some people, the anxiety of not doing it is not worth it, right? Some people, it's just like, go on and let that hair go so that you can just show up and do this thing. But I'm not empowering that. I feel like if you can, hold on to your locks, good people. Don't let them go. So you started your podcast in 2020. What has been one of the things that has surprised you about being a podcaster?
I think so many things. I think one thing that surprised me was how fast things could happen when you really kind of put yourself out there like that consistently. And in fact, it surprised me. I wasn't prepared for it. And I think that's like one of the first times I experienced Podfade, where you feel that burnt out feeling and just can't record. And that's part of why I say, yo, keep it simple, because there's always signs that overcomplicate things. So I was surprised by how quickly you could reach people that you thought were unreachable, and how often people will say yes to a podcast interview as well. Just how quickly things could happen when you publish. And the other thing was just how much people would actually resonate with what you're saying. And I think that was, that was actually the most surprising thing, because I recorded when I first graduated from college, but I didn't publish for like 3-4 years after that. And I felt like I wasn't the right person for the podcast that I wanted to do. And it's crazy what imposter syndrome will do to you. So it's something that it surprised me at the beginning. And I don't think I really understood that people really do want to hear my voice until probably maybe a few months ago, maybe. So it's a lesson that I have to keep on learning and reminding myself.
Yeah, please keep telling your story, Walter. It is important, and it is important for people to hear, right? So how can people prepare their voice? Do you have any tips for that? Like, how do you get prepared for an interview? How did you get prepared for this interview today?
A couple things. Preparing your voice. Make sure you got water. I got the super bottle. It has a lot of ounces that go hold, and just really listen to yourself as well. Like the whole like just record thing. It's not just a thing that people say like just do it, but if you just record something, even if it sounds or you don't know what you're saying, you could at least hear how you sound. You could change, like what your voice sounds like if you start speaking like really low or get excited, or if you're just mumbling through everything. That was my problem, like really enunciating each individual word. And then another thing I like to do, and this is because I like to over prepare so that I can feel free, is that I'll have like a notebook with me of like certain things that I may want to talk about, or some questions that I always struggle with, like tell me a little about yourself. I hate that question. It's a good question, but it's like I struggle sometimes to answer that. So sometimes I'll write a little things like, oh, about me, so that once it's written down, just little bullet points, I could just quickly glance, look back, okay, yeah, cool, and then go from there. So kind of jotting down some notes of what you want to say, so you know what story, what direction you want to go, drinking water, and really know your voice and what it sounds like. Don't worry if you think your voice sounds weird, because everybody's voice sounds weird, but everyone else will tell you, oh, I love your voice. So get that out of your head. But yeah, just know how you sound.
Nice. Do you listen to all of your episodes, or there's some episodes where you kind of just post them and don't listen to them?
I do. And I hate listening to my episodes when other people are around me. But yeah, I do listen to them. It's kind of like some research. And then also sometimes like, oh wow, yeah, that was good. And then other times like, oh wow, that was trash. So it's just kind of yeah. I definitely recommend it.
I so resonate with that. When my wife tries to play my episodes, I walk out. Like, I don't want to really engage with it with her. It's this very like weird feeling that I have about it. And I have a documentary, and I used to get weirded out at that when we used to screen it.
Oh
My
yeah.
business partner Lex and I would leave. We would just like let people screen it and kind of leave out of the space, because it does make you feel a little bit more vulnerable, right? And sometimes I also feel like you said, you hear your voice and you're like, why do I sound like that? Because you didn't think you sound like that during the interview, but other people are enjoying it. So it's so interesting, these things we have internally, even though we're expressing ourselves and creating content. And for folks who are listening, I think that's one thing I really want to send you good energy to. Like, Walter and I have been podcasting for a while now, right? But still, we're building our muscles of confidence. And I think that continues to happen as a content creator, as a creative being. You build more and more confidence, you trust yourself, and you get more reps in. And this is why we really want you to just get started, right? Get started, get into it, and really have a good time, because if it brings you joy, it makes it easier to go into it. So before we navigate into our last section, which is boy talk and hop, and this is kind of like I give you some random phrases and you give them back to me. I want to know, for you, you mentioned Podfade, right? And it sounds like it's something where you burn out, or you don't feel good about podcasting. Can you explain that a little bit to the audience and how you've navigated that as a podcaster?
Yeah, I fell into it without realizing what it was, and it's something I wish I knew beforehand, or at least wish I knew that it would happen. So pod fade is exactly that. It's burning out, and it's usually due to doing too much, like trying to just produce a lot of content without having the proper support systems built for you. And it also sometimes happens where you just like all of a sudden run out of ideas and lose inspiration, or life just comes at you and life's like, yeah, this podcast thing you're doing, nah, life is happening right now. You got to deal with that. And then it's hard to come back. Maybe taking a break and that break turns too long and you just like have trouble recording again. So pod fade could come in a lot of different forms, but it's all kind of relating to just not being able to record due to not physical factors, but more so internal factors or mental wellness. So What's also interesting about Podfade is that a lot of people experience it around the same time. I remember when I opened up about it, I was around episode 20 when I opened up with my podcasting group. And they're like, you know what? Looking back, episode 2018, I kind of experienced the same thing as well. So it's something that made me realize that, okay, if that many people experience it around the same time, it's something that definitely can and will happen. So how do you prepare to kind of let it happen, but on your own terms, if that makes sense? And that's why I'm really big on intentional breaks right now to plan out content, record, but also be like, okay, but once this date hits, I need to stop and really turn it into fade into pod break or something, or just pod timeout or clock out, you know? So,
Pod clock out. I like that.
yeah.
Put that on a hoodie, Walter, and I'll buy it.
Gotcha.
I like that a lot. Yeah, because you know, I experienced it. Every podcaster does, every content creator does. And what I took from it was that I was unprepared. And I love that you mentioned it's when we create content and we don't have the support systems that we need. So for me, it's all about creating podcast or content ahead of time. Let me like bulk it out, get in like almost like, you know, like a sport, like we in season, right? I'm about to be in here recording. We gonna get it down and have enough to put out for the next season, and then be transparent with your audience about the break that you need to take. And I think that's a great representation that you're talking about, is that we need breaks, right? And being as public about that, as public as you are about producing the content, right? Like I'm on a break, season is over, we'll be back. And when y'all think about it, who are listening, like all our favorite TV shows, they not on all the time, are they? No, we got seasons, right? Insecure is over, y'all. It's not coming back. But before, in between, we had seasons, right? It was like, okay, you get your season, you done. And if you want to watch us again, you're going to watch it again. And it's the same thing with podcasting. And I don't know why we start off and think that we have to do it forever. Like when it's not shown to us in other content and media. Walter, why do you think you felt that way as a podcaster, that you had to just like move through it, even though
Yeah,
we have representation around us that showed different?
that's a good question, right? And it's because I think of how I consume content. The shows that I listened to, they were there every week. They're part of my life. I knew on this day I could count on them to put out an episode. And if they didn't put out an episode, I'd be like, oh my God, what happened? Why aren't they here? And it's actually like an unhealthy habit of a lot of consumers, right? To really think that people are going to be there all the time for you like that. So when I started my podcast, it was a goal of mine to be like every Tuesday, new episode. We're there, part of your weekly routine. Don't forget Boss Locks. We're releasing all the time. And some of my episodes where I didn't release all the time, I'd be like, yep, next week. And next week there was nothing. But I was like, I beat myself up about it. So I think it's because we do see that some people are there weekly consistently, but we also don't see that they have support to be able to do that. And they actually do take breaks and we don't even realize it sometimes. Because just like you said before, like the scheduled content, they record a bunch and put it out. So like right now, I'm realizing that I can record as much as I want so that I am publishing every week, but I'll be on break where I have other people to manage the publishing of it and everything like that. So I can still be intentional and do everything I want to do, but I'm not there yet. So I'm not expecting that of myself. So I think that's why people try to do it all the time. They want to make it, they want to be big, they want to be a part of people's lives. And it's a great goal, but it's just not realistic for everyone at every stage. So
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the concept of having a team, right? I think that we see so many content creators and we don't realize that there's a team, because, you know, that's a part of the work, is making someone look good, right? Oprah looked bomb, y'all. Oprah was bomb all those years, but Oprah had a team and still has an intensive team. So shouts out to all of the teammates that are making it easier for us as content creators to make it happen, who are behind the scenes, showing love, recording in the podcast, creating some of the show notes, doing all the stuff to make it brilliant, because it really is a community effort. So before you head out, let's get into Boy Talk and Hop, right? And this is a section where I'm going to give you some phrases and you're going to just give me words back on whatever resonates with you. You ready to get into it? It's kind of quick, so I need you to think and get to it. You know, this ain't the time to go on your tablet and start writing down things. Nah, this is whatever comes to Walter's mind. Sound good?
All right, ping pong style.
Yep,
Sorry in
ping pong
advance. I don't
style.
know what's gonna happen.
All right, so let's start off with the heart. Love is,
Happiness,
money is,
success,
ownership is.
purpose.
If you could speak to anyone dead or alive, who would it be and what would you do?
I'm mad because Abraham Lincoln popped in my head first, but I actually have no desire to speak to Abraham Lincoln. I don't know why. I think I was thinking about dead people.
He's been dead for a while, so this is correct.
Yeah. Malcolm X was the second person who popped in my head. He was the second person, yeah. And I think you said why. I read his autobiography when I was in college, and it changed my whole perception about my own life, the world, everything. So yeah, I would love to just hear his thoughts, I guess maybe on today compared to back then. And I guess also thank him.
Beautiful. Locks are
Healthy,
wellness is.
needed.
My favorite song is
Kendrick Lamar. I know that's not a song, but what he puts out.
Yes. I love DNA. That's one of my favorite Kendrick songs. That's my workout. That's like, let me get pumped up because I got royalty and loyalty all up in my DNA.
All in
so
the
thank
DNA.
you. Favorite food is
Macaroni and cheese.
yes. Do you make it or is it more store bought?
Not store bought. I don't trust the store. Mac and cheese. Homemade in the oven.
Nice. Okay. And last but never least, Walter is
Okay. Well, I'm gonna change that to great.
Walter the Great. You surely are, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been an honor to be able to hold space with you. Tell folks how can they get to know you, what you got going on next, and how can they support your work?
Yes. Thank you. I'm really glad I'm on this show. This is awesome. I just have to say as well, this is a show that at one point, I remember when I first met you, I was like, okay, I want to be on the show, but I didn't feel ready to be on the show. So this is like a milestone for me right now.
Thank you. I'm so happy you were able to come, and I'm so happy we're connected. You got a dope Facebook group too, so don't forget to tell people about that.
Yes. There's a lot of different ways. If you're a Facebook user, definitely look up Working While Black on Facebook. It's Boss Locks Working While Black. That's a private group for Black people to just come together and be safe space, just express, what's going on in the workplace or just what's going on in life. I'm trying to turn it into more of like a group chat vibes, but we're here to support. But I'm also spending a lot of time on LinkedIn. In fact, I'm changing my address to LinkedIn Av because I was just accepted into LinkedIn's Creator Accelerator program. All to create content to support people working while Black. So
congrats.
Thank you. That was definitely like a validating feeling as well, talking about confidence and insecurities and stuff. But search me, Walter Gaynor II on LinkedIn. I'm there, comment on my posts, send messages to me. I love meeting new people. I'm not yet overwhelmed with the number of people I've met. So definitely hit me up right now because I don't know what's going to happen for a month from now. So
definitely hit Walter up. So LinkedIn, and then where can they find the podcast?
Yes, the Boss Locks, a podcast. If you're listening to this podcast right now, you could just search on that same platform, Boss Locks, as BOSS space LOCKS, and you'll see a yellow avatar or a gold kind of picture with my face on and the words Boss Locks on there as well. So give us a listen.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Walter. Folks, thank you for listening and thank you for podcasting because we know that this is going to motivate some folks to get in there, record their shows, and share their stories. And until next time, peace.
Hey, this is Walter, and I'm born obviously incredible.
Thanks for listening to Boy Meets Wellness. Stay connected on and off the show by following us online at Boy Meets Wellness. That's boy with an I. Until next time, go be incredible.